So you put me between the Skidoo and the Polaris guy.
I did, yeah. I had to separate those two guys. Hey, welcome to the SnoWest show. This is episode number. No, I don't even know. We'll figure that out later. I was not good with math. That's why I do magazines. I'm Ryan Harris with SnoWest Magazine and the SnoWest Podcast. We still do SnoWest Magazine. You can subscribe to that at snowwest.com. We have merch, and you can check us out on social media at SnoWest Magazine. The SnoWest Podcast is something new for us. We've been doing this for several episodes now. I think we're on 4 or 5. They're going pretty good. You can find those on our YouTube channel at SnoWest Magazine and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Today we have these guys fresh out of their Avalanche Alliance seminar down here at the Utah Snowmobile Show. We have Matt Entz, who needs no introduction.
Thanks.
From Mountain Skills, snowmobile clinics and educational stuff, a lot of backcountry stuff. You're based in South Fork, Colorado.
Yeah.
Been down there your whole life?
Yep, lived that area for a long time. Mason referred to me as old earlier today, so
he's getting up.
I've got that going for me.
But don't you hate that when these young kids come up and they're like what, 8 years younger than us?
Yeah, I think he's what 21,
28,
oh.
yeah.
28. That's you're gonna get called old by some young punk here.
That's all good.
The worst part about it is I'm older than both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're the same age, aren't you?
I think so. 96. I graduated.
Yep, 96. Okay.
I was born in 94, so.
Oh, geez. And
then we have babysat you.
And then we have Dustin Pancheri. So Klim, you're the athlete manager and show coordinator. What's your official title?
It changes.
What was it?
I take care of most stuff in snow. So athlete, shows, special events, anything that has to do with the marketing side of snow.
Okay. And then Avalanche Alliance, which is something that it's a standalone entity, nonprofit organization designed to raise money for ARI.
Yeah.
But it's kind of run by you guys at Klim. For the most part.
Yeah, it's designed to raise money for wherever the board feels like it needs to go, but ARI's a big part of that. They're part of the board, and they've helped us facilitate where those funds go. Yeah, so it's close with ARI, but we'll use it for a number of different resources.
Okay. And then Mason Rutledge, factory Skidoo, hill climb.
Factory Skidoo, hill climb.
Did you do a year of snowcross?
I did a couple years of snowcross, but really just kind of dabbled in it enough to realize that's way out of my league. It was fun. I learned a lot, but the commitment, I live out west in Idaho, so the commitments, back Minnesota, back east, it was just too much. So I switched over to the hill climb side and a little more at home. I'm a mountain guy, so it's more fitting.
So when you were racing snowcross, did you move out there for the winter?
Nope. We just go back and forth. So we got a lot of drive time in. It was fun, but it's just snowcross is a whole another beast, Not growing up doing that, it's pretty hard to jump in it and feel real competitive, where, I grew up a mountain rider. Being in the mountains is a little easier transition into the hill climbing for me.
So that's funny to me. I did a little of it back in the 90s, snowcross and hill climb. And I enjoyed the snowcross because you're on the snowmobile quite a bit during the day.
Right.
And you would go to a hill climb and you would show up on Thursday and you would qualify Friday and you would run some finals on Saturday and then you'd run finals on Sunday.
Right.
I feel like I rode a snowmobile over those 4 days about 8 minutes.
Yeah, at the most, probably. Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that snowcross hill climb dynamic. What was your favorite race that you did snowcross?
Probably we went to Deadwood, South Dakota. I'm trying to remember what year, maybe the winter of 16, 17 or 17, somewhere in there. And I just enjoyed it. It was in Deadwood. They do it in their fairgrounds. It's a super tight arena. Big jumps that I really couldn't probably jump. But it was just neat because when you were out there, you were kind of above the spectators because they haul all the snow in the arena. So just kind of the overall vibe in that town and stuff was really neat. Duluth was cool too. We hit Duluth a couple of times. And it's just kind of a staple race in the snowcross world. Up on a ski hill above the town and above the lake there. So it was always kind of neat to see that.
Yeah. So Matt, my son and I came down to your place last spring and we rode dirt bikes with you. And I live in Idaho Falls and we're 4,000 feet. We ride sleds 9,000 feet. I couldn't breathe at your house.
we live at 8,200.
I can't. That was crazy. So when you snowmobile down there, you're kind of Wolf Creek Pass area.
That's home.
So you start out, you unload. If you travel to Wolf Creek Pass, you unload at what, 85?
If you go to the top of the pass, you're unloading at just under 11,000. But the other trailheads, a lot are around 9,000 where we're starting out.
So what's the terrain like down there? Is it just vertical?
No, I'd say it's not near as vertical as like Star Valley or Alpine or even some of this stuff in Utah is vertical. But we have a lot of elevation change, a lot of variety, lots of wooded areas, a little bit of stuff above tree line, but you don't really ride there because it's so exposed. And really, the snow isn't that good. It's just go there if you're traveling or just to get a good view. But lots of variety, lots of good woods, lots of tree riding.
So when did you get started with mountain skills?
2012 is when we started it.
And what got you into that?
Well, I saw guys like Chris Brandt and Dan Adams and really thought what they was doing was really neat, kind of different spectrums, and wanted to ride snowmobiles with people and share that experience, but I didn't really know the direction. Wasn't sure how to put it together, exactly where we fit in. And that earlier in 2012, I was involved in an avalanche out here in Utah that experience totally changed my mindset and goals and made me personally get a lot more education focused, and was kind of the light bulb moment of need to get the training myself, but need to share that awareness with other people as well. And so that kind of became a focus, and decided we were going to go the instructional route, but with a big emphasis on the avalanche education and awareness. And that's what kicked it all off.
So if you don't mind, like talk about that avalanche that you were in.
Yeah, you bet.
Like, a lot of people are starting to come around. For a while there, it felt like the avalanche stuff was kind of being pushed on everybody, and people weren't really receptive to it. And then the industry has kind of turned around to where everybody's really active in it, and I think people are very receptive to it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's taken a couple very significant deaths in the industry that have hit people really hard. But I think the industry as a whole, the mountain riding segment, is very, very open to this, to the avalanche education. But at that same token, not everybody has been through that experience.
Yeah, it's good. We're starting to see a good shift of the culture where it's more accepted and it's almost expected that people are taking training, and if you're riding, you have this training, which is a good thing. But for me, that day, it was really deep, lots and lots of snow. I was out here to ride and film with Dan Gardner and the Boondockers guys, and the first day, just there wasn't going to be really any filming because it was snowing hard still, low visibility, and high danger. We were aware of that, so played it pretty conservative, and lots of creek riding and low angle terrain, and still having a blast because it's just a stuck fest. So just one of those fun days that you really remember. Towards the end of the day, we were going to take a shortcut down it wasn't a big mountain. It was kind of a small hill. We needed to stay towards the trees, and then it would connect us to the trail. So even with that, we looked at it and talked about we need to go one person at a time. We need to stay in this spot, and we should be good. Everybody else keep eyes on them, and we'll go from there. I can't remember, Fatty or Smasher. One of them was first, went down, and they hit a rock on the way down. And then the other one followed, hit the same rock. I was third in line. I didn't want to hit the rock. So I thought, well, I'll take a little different line. And at the top of it, I put my snowmobile on edge to move over just a little bit to change my line. And I didn't recognize it was kind of on top of a wind-loaded, almost a cornice, but the fresh snow, I just didn't recognize that. And this island of snow broke around me. And so now my snowmobile and I are moving down the mountain with this island of snow. And my first thought was, I'm on a snowmobile, grab a handful of throttle, and we're just going to ride this thing out, which was bad on my part. I should have used my equipment. Thankfully, I learned a lot from that experience that now we're able to share, and thankfully it worked out the way that it did. But about the time I went to reach for the throttle, this big block of snow now broke into multiple pieces and went different ways, threw my snowmobile on its side and threw me down the hill below it. So now I'm in the snow, tumbling head over heels. My snowmobile's coming right over the top of me. When I can see light, I can see that snowmobile right above me, and that was my concern, is when this stops, the snowmobile is going to park on top of me. These guys are going to have to dig the snowmobile out before they can get me. So that was a little bit concerning. But now I'm tumbling through the snow, and I'm like, I'm having an airbag on. I should pull the handle. And through the tumbling, I was never able to get my hand on it. And just became a matter of trying to flail around and either stay towards the top or give some sort of a visual for the other guys. And when it came to a stop, tried moving, and I couldn't. The snow sets up so quickly. Try standing up, that didn't work. Try moving my arms and legs, couldn't do that. But I was able to move the fingers on one hand. So that let me know where the surface was and that I wasn't that deep. And thankfully, Fatty and Smasher, they were down at the bottom in a safe spot watching. They got to me real quick. Didn't have to use beacons or probe or anything. They just started shoveling and were able to get me an airway and get me out. One of the craziest things that I can remember, like 2 things specifically, how cold it was being in the snow, like just feeling that everywhere, and like snow trying to pack up the back of my helmet, and like it just kind of gives me the chills thinking about that. But also how tight the snow compact around me. I wasn't able to take that deep breath and catch my breath because I'd been working my butt off trying to move around. It's almost like having the wind knocked out of me, and I couldn't take that big breath and get that. So I had to slow myself down mentally, like, okay, it's going to be okay. You can hear these guys. You know that you're close to the surface. Try to take small breaths and get where you're breathing again. And so got that, and again, thankfully everything turned out good. But that was life-changing for sure.
So you said something interesting. You thought, your first thought was when the snow broke, you could ride out of it.
Yeah, first thought was, I'm on a snowmobile. This thing has a turbo. I'm just going to ride out of it. We'll laugh about it, and we'll move on with our day.
So why couldn't you?
Well, the second that happened, this all happened so fast. It's kind of slow motion while you're in that moment, but it all happened so quick. And like the time I had that thought to the time I reached for the throttle, that snow broke into multiple pieces and removed me from the snowmobile.
So what you've learned from there is go for your equipment.
Equipment first. That should be the first thing. If there's any sign of something happening, use that equipment. Otherwise, how's it going to help you?
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. And then Mason, this is a segue into an experience that you've had, and this experience didn't turn out so well.
Right.
You talk to us about that.
Yeah. So when I was 16 years old, we were up at a family cabin up in northern Idaho with my mom and stepdad and his family, and it was pretty kind of an annual trip, right, over the holidays. And he and I were going to go snowmobiling one day, and we'd had a whole bunch of new snow during the week prior to this. And yeah, I just remember, knowing that it was going to be, a heavy snowfall, powder day, like just super excited for that. As we're getting dressed and stuff, being young, 16 years old, I remember, looking at my stepdad, who was a, big role model in my life, a, best friend, and, talking to him, hey, like, are we taking beacons? Is that kind of wondering, is that something we do, And he's, yeah, turn your beacon on and, throw it in your pocket. So I did that. And then I was holding my backpack and had the shovel and probe in there. And I was like, man, I just don't want to pack this around all day. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be a deep day. I don't want it. So we left it, and yeah, we took off. Where we're at, it's northern Idaho up the St. Joe River. So it's pretty remote. Closest town's about 30 miles. And then we rode in about 14 miles back in, and we hit this, what we always refer to as like the first bowl. We're playing in there, coming through the trees, and he and I were side hilling. I'm following his tracks, and I kind of get sucked into a tree well and ended up getting stuck, which is not uncommon. And so anyways, I'm kind of working at my sled, trying to get myself unstuck, and it just didn't feel right. It was socked in, snowing hard, couldn't see anything, but I couldn't hear my stepdad, and usually he was pretty good to come back around to help me or something. And so I was like, no, something's not quite right. So I started walking in his trench along the side hill and then kind of come out of the trees. And then I could see, in this first bowl that it had slid. And it was a big slide, right? It was 150 yards across, a 5-6 foot crown, really big. And immediately, I kind of had a panic, like, holy cow, like, this is real, but then instantly kind of went into, okay, I got to see if there's a snowmobile track coming out of this. Maybe this was already here and he just rode across it. Looking around, can't find any tracks, no sign. So I'm like, okay, well, I have a beacon. I didn't have any formal training. they're not difficult to use. I mean, to be efficient with them is where the difficulty comes, and the practice is. But as far as just, I could turn it to search, I could follow the directional arrows and the numbers count down, and kind of did that. And that's a sound that it just doesn't really leave your mind, that experience. I mean, I remember it as if it was like yesterday. And, as I followed the beacon and got down to my lowest number, which was like a 3.5, and beacon's reading in like meters, so it's about 10 feet, realizing I didn't have a shovel, a probe. I picked at the snow, but avalanche snow, it sets up pretty fast. It creates a lot of heat. It gets, packs in. It's solid. I couldn't dig in it. So I just made a decision that I had to go for help, right? So I went back, got my sled out, rode back out 14 miles. And this was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Went back to our cabin. I called 911. A deputy came out. They called search and rescue. But being so far away from a town, I mean, it took hours for people to gather in, and get there. And finally, as after dark, we all went back in, and it was about, I can't remember exactly, maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we went in, and the lead search and rescue guy, he kind of let us in with his beacon. We found the spot. A few guys were kind of probing around, and they found him pretty quick with the probe. But it was about 9.5 feet down, so it was quite a bit of work for all of us to shovel out, right? And so for me, I mean, it's something, I learned so many lessons as a 16-year-old. I grew up really fast. There were some mindset changes, some things that, that could be a whole nother story, right? That, past that, it led me down and just different things to experience that. But on a, avalanche and a snowmobile point of view, just looking back now, being prepared, always having the equipment with you, and knowing how to use it, being trained with it, using it frequently, with the hopes that when that situation, if it ever happens again, that I'm more prepared, I can come for my buddy, or I can come help someone that's in need of me, so they don't have to be like me and go back and, tell my mom what had happened, or to have to be that person that has to tell them that their spouse or their friend's not coming home, so that's where, just having the tools, learning our lessons. It seems like we all learn things the hard way sometimes and at bigger sacrifices than other, but that's kind of where I'm at now, is just, I want to dabble in sharing that message a little bit, telling people that, we've been lucky a bunch, but there's resources out there, there's tools out there, and a little bit of practice, a little bit of training can go a long ways in this sport. Well,
and I'll tell you, that's an incredible story, and it's probably hard to get to the point where you could retell that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it took, and I didn't really realize this at the time, with family and some close friends, we could talk about the story and the experience and stuff, but it really wasn't until recently, a buddy of mine that's kind of gone through something similar, we were talking, and it kind of hit me like, man, it took me about 10 years before I openly shared that story with someone that, wasn't in my immediate circle. And a lot of it's, as a 16-year-old, I made some mistakes, right? And whether or not the outcome would have been different, I don't know, and I try not to dwell on that as much. But what I do focus on is I wasn't prepared, but I can be now, and I can help other people be prepared.
Well, I'll tell you what, just as a snowmobiler, this, and maybe I'm speaking for other people, maybe I'm not, but just as a snowmobiler, you always think in your head, okay, what am I going to do in this scenario? Because I feel like I'm going to be more prepared than I actually am when that actually happens.
Right.
So you tell yourself, well, I'm going to be on a snowmobile, and I'm going to be able to ride my snowmobile. And you didn't.
Right.
In that situation, you were walking through the trees.
Right.
Didn't have a snowmobile to go do anything with. I'm always telling myself, yeah, I've got a shovel. I've got the equipment. Admittedly, I can always learn how to use it better. I need more training.
Right.
And repetitive training. But you always tell yourself, I've got the equipment, so I'm good. But in reality, and Dan's had that experience. You've had a couple of experiences in that where it's just not the case.
Yeah, and things that happen so quick that we don't even realize while it's happening. And there's so much we can do to be prepared. And we hope we never get in that situation. That's kind of the main thing. But knowing how to respond and react and trying to save a life and have the best outcome possible. That's another goal.
Yeah. So Dustin, we've been around each other in the industry for our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
I would say. You've worked at Starting Line Products. You've worked for SnowTech Magazine. So, we've been together at Snowshoot and all of these big events. It's funny because Snowshoot is always in the West, typically. So it's always mountain terrain. Mm-hmm. And avalanche awareness really wasn't the big deal until a few years ago.
No, I mean, I remember a couple of years, they made us do like a little pre-course before we would take the sleds out every year at the photo events. We do like a little beacon training or something. And then it's just been recently, they've required all of us on mountain sleds to wear all the gear, which are all necessary things. Like, I think that's good, both from a liability standpoint, but also encouraging, the correct decisions. Yeah. But not really enough training they're leaving it on us, I guess, to have that training and be prepared, which I would like to see anybody that's on that side of things become more trained, and have more knowledge for sure.
But it does show a shift. It shows a shift just towards, we're creating the products, we're creating the snowmobiles, we're creating the aftermarket stuff that are getting people deeper into the backcountry sooner following a big storm. Like, we're immediately in.
Oh, yeah. The capabilities changed a ton.
Yeah.
The access from, you don't even have to be that good of a rider now. The sleds are so dang good out of the box. They can put us in places that many of us aren't prepared for from, a riding ability standpoint or a safety standpoint. So that's changed a lot, I think, and it's pretty easy to recognize that. But, the whole avalanche preparedness thing it is going through a change right now due to a lot of people's efforts. Some of that's from the OEMs. Some of it's from organizations like ARI. Some of it's from, organizations like Klim and Avalanche Alliance and media, guys like you and things like that. So we're slowly starting to change that mindset and see that mindset, but we still have a lot of work to do.
So where did Avalanche Alliance come from?
So it was an idea from us sitting around chatting at lunch one day at Klim, because I'd just gone through it shook me up pretty good, a slide that shook me up, and several of us had been talking about losses in the industry, and we're just like, man, we, as a company, we kind of have a platform, to make a change. Why don't we do something? Let's launch something and begin something and start using our platforms to communicate outwards to consumers that they have options, that one, avalanche risk is real and it's big, and two, they have options to become more prepared, and ultimate goal is reduce deaths, prevent traumatic accidents, things like that. And so it started from that conversation, and then we just started bouncing the idea off people and kind of figuring out like what it was going to take to put something together, because we didn't know. It's like we pushed the cart down the hill, and like now we're kind of steering it on the way down, figuring out what we can do.
Yeah, and this isn't the first group effort that's been in the industry to get everybody kind of on the same page, rallied around one common support system for avalanche education.
Sure.
But for some reason, this one is the one that's sticking.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that have contributed to that. One is we're starting to see more motorized specific training available. There's always been avalanche training, but it's only been the last 4 or 5 years that there's actually been, a motorized curriculum specific to the way we ride, right? And Matt, we'll talk about in, some of the presentations that we do, how he took his first training on snowshoes.
That was terrible. The snowshoeing part. The training was great. So snowshoeing is not so great.
And I think that was one of the main factors. But I think the other factor is that there's been some big publicity and with media and social media around some pretty significant accidents that have rocked the industry. Rob Kincaid, Josh. I don't want to go through and name all, but those things were they were people that were in consumers. Their brand was readily available to everybody, and we all felt that, and how it affected the industry. And so it's because it's been more, that information's been more available to us. It's leading to people kind of starting to change the way they think. Like, well, heck, if it can happen to them, I guess maybe it can happen to me too. A lot of us used to be like, oh, that stuff doesn't happen to me, or I don't ride that way, or the mindset's just like, yeah, I don't have to worry about it as much. And now that mindset's changing. Like, okay, actually, I do need to be worried about this. These sleds will take us there, and I'm probably at more risk than I actually thought I was. And so that's where the Avalanche Alliance is trying to provide those tools to help them, have that mindset and then act on that mindset.
Okay, so what's the execution on Avalanche Alliance? Like you've given away snowmobiles for the past 2 years or 3 years?
We did 3 sleds.
3 sleds, and then this year you're giving away a 2022
F350
Ford Super Duty.
Yeah.
Where does that money go, and how much have you raised? Like how much has this brought in?
So I guess the 2 things we figured out in the beginning was, in order to make a difference, you've got to have a platform, and you've got to have fun. You got to fund that platform, right? And so fundraising became a big deal. And the first year was a Polaris snowmobile. We got several companies to kick in, other gear companies, aftermarket companies, put parts on the sled. They bought tickets for that. First year we raised like $55,000, and that was donated to scholarships for training. A lot of that area managed that, right? Second year we did good. We did $125,000. Last year we did $180,000, and most of those funds have been primarily focused on getting scholarships for people to get training, whether it's on a pro level or a rec level. But then the second thing is funding avalanche centers and resources that riders can access to help them make better decisions. So there's avalanche centers all over the Rocky Mountain West, and they get their funding through different ways, but a lot of it is fundraisers. Some of it's government provided, but a lot of it's fundraisers.
So what does this money mean for those? Because like you said, they do already get money, and there's forecasting stations, and there's been educational platforms. Now they're not motorized. They haven't been motorized. But what has this money meant for that?
And a lot of them are just kind of getting up to speed that they need more motorized information. And a lot of their funds come from human-powered fundraising activities. But there's so many areas we can access that they can't, that don't have a forecast. So that's one of the biggest issues. One is getting a forecast in areas, and then 2, having a consistent forecast. It'd be great if we could do one 7 days a week. Some areas might have one 3 days a week. Some areas don't have one at all. So that funding is what's opening those doors and providing those resources to give us more accurate, first off, some information, and secondly, more accurate information, and more readily available to us.
And on top of the funding, I mean, Skidoo's been giving away snowmobiles to some of these avalanche institutes.
Yep.
They go back and do the forecasting. And
Polaris and Yamaha. Like all the OEMs have actually been providing resources for some of these avalanche centers.
And that makes a huge difference because now they're not like snowshoeing in and just checking the closest hill. They're getting back into where we're actually riding and updating us with better information and doing it daily.
Yeah, and it's
That's
cool
a huge difference.
because now these avalanche centers that have been maybe traditionally more funded by human-powered sports, and they were using human-powered activities to get those forecasts. They've realized that on snowmobiles they can do more forecasting, and so they're even transitioning. Even though it's maybe the forecast is for human-powered users, they're utilizing the motorized side to do better. To get more accurate and more available forecasting.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to see that.
Yeah, and the avalanche stuff there for a while seemed like it was just a bunch of doom and gloom, and like nobody wanted to listen to it because it was a downer. Mm-hmm. And this is the funnest sport you can possibly do. I mean, also the most expensive, but
right.
You spend that much money, it's going to be a blast. Horsepower is expensive, but it's still fun. So having this skill and this knowledge and being able to go back into backcountry with a better understanding and more preparedness, how does that impact you? Like, you guys are pro athletes out there doing the most extreme stuff you can. How does all this knowledge and education and awareness impact that?
Well, feel more confident as a rider. I think there's some misconception with avalanche courses. Like you said, it's not all like doom and gloom and scare you and that. It's to give you the resources to make good decisions while you're riding, and actually, hopefully, kind of the goal is to help people ride more, but making those decisions of when and where to be or not to be, that kind of stuff. It's unfortunate that, and you kind of mentioned it, but tragedy has kind of led to like opening a lot of people's eyes. It's sad that that's how it goes, but that's kind of reality. Like something that really hits you hard is going to make more of an impact, and then help people, push them into that. And one of the biggest comments that we get after courses from people is, wow, I can't believe I waited so long. Like, why didn't I do this years and years ago? And we try to make the courses fun. Like, we're riding snowmobiles. You said it's the funnest thing you can do. And we're doing a lot of that throughout the courses as well, and making them relevant for the riding that people are doing. So that, like, there's a lot of fun to be had in the way that we acquire that information as well. And I think that helps make it more relevant as well. And that's what was so hard years ago. Why would a snowmobiler go take a ski course where that's not even how they recreate? Like, it's awesome how much more available the training is now.
Mm-hmm. And you know, Dan Adams has also been, you know, he's done these seminars, the Avalanche Alliance stuff in the past, gone around with you and done dealerships and snow shows. And how many seminars did you do last year?
We did 24 or 5, I think, across the...
And that was across the western states plus...
Midwest too, yeah. Minnesota, Milwaukee. That's what's crazy is they're starting to spread like even into the further east because those guys aspire to be mountain riders. They want to come out here. And so it's starting even to... we're seeing demand out there too, but...
Okay, so what's the progression? If I've been to a couple seminars, what's the next thing I need to do?
Enroll on and on snow training.
That's what the Avalanche Alliance presentations are all about. We're not teaching classes. You can't do that in an hour and a half in a classroom. The goal is to give some some information and share our experiences and get people to understand the importance and the benefits of taking a true on snow training course. Like, I feel like a level 1 should be a standard for anybody that is going to be a mountain rider. They should have that level 1 training at least.
And there's there's a significant amount more providers and training available now than there was 3 years ago. Like, the opportunity to get some training, it's way easier to do it than it used to be. There's a lot of different providers, whether they're in the ARI network or whether they're AAA certified or whatever course they've gone through, that they offer that opportunity for us to enroll in that. So it was kind of hard to find a few years ago, but now it's much, much easier.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you can enter to win the 2022 Ford Super Duty F350. Scan this QR code. We'll have that showing on the YouTube. Otherwise, you can go to climb.com and you can find out how to enter there. You can go to snowwest.com, find out how to enter there. Follow Avalanche Alliance on social media. They're posting about it constantly. And the area has some information on there as well. This truck is really cool. It's got a lot of stuff on it. It's going to have a lot of stuff on it.
Yeah, and thanks to you guys, too, by the way, for helping us source some of that stuff. Wheel Pros kicked in big time. Ready lift, air lift. We got some lights, fuel wheels, BFGs, got us some tires. I mean, it's going to be a truck all of us want to ride to the mountain on for sure.
Yeah.
So it should be really
sled
fun.
Deck,
Marlon.
We're ready to load up and go.
They donated for free a brand new sled deck. Fly's helping us out. They've kicked in a full head to toe suit, and that's been one of the other cool things too. Is like there's competing brands kicking it. Like, we're all working together. Like, people can make drama out of, oh, well, you ride for these guys or you ride for that, or you're in that brand or whatever. But I mean, I'm having chats with Colin at Fly, WPS about, hey, what can we do? We're working together. You guys put this out on your social media, whatever. I mean, it's bridging, it's bringing everybody together to benefit everyone, right? Which doesn't happen that often. So it's just kind of cool to see like all these relationships come together and make a difference. There is another cool competition we're going to do too with the trip to Chile.
Talk about that.
So to inspire people to practice with their gear, we teamed up with Matt and Dan Adams, and we're going to give away a free trip to ride in Chile next July. And the way that you can enter for that is we're gonna issue some challenges through social media to practice with your gear. In fact, we're going to do the first one here in 2-3 weeks. So the idea there is you put all your gear on, you time yourself deploying all of your gear, getting your shovel, getting your probe, getting your transceiver, practicing, knowing which zippers you got to get through and things like that, and just kind of becoming as familiar as you possibly can. You upload that to social media. You upload it to a link we'll give you, and that gets you entered in to win the trip to Chile, all expenses paid. I don't know who wouldn't want to go ride in Chile in July. Like, that's a dream come true.
That's like the coolest thing possible.
So Sled Chile, we've partnered with Sled Chile on that down there, Cesar and Skylar. They do tours down there for 3 months in the summer. They've been sending me content and stuff that they're doing. I mean, it's amazing country down there. Like, what an opportunity, just a once in a lifetime deal. So we'll get behind that, and somebody's gonna win a trip.
Well, normally that's about a $5,000-$6,000 package, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, without airfare. Yeah.
Without airfare.
Yeah, and we're going to cover all of it. So,
what's really cool though, doing this in the name of awareness and practicing with our stuff, checking it over before the season, and like getting people to think about stuff, and just again, it's part of that mindset change and stuff that we can be prepared for. And what a cool reward somebody. I can't wait to see who we get to go down there and ride with.
Yeah. So who all gets to go down there with the winners?
So the winner will be able to take one person with them. It'll be Matt, Dan, myself, then the 2 winners. And then they'll be joined with the guys from Sled Chile. There's rumors there might be a couple of other climb athletes there. I don't know yet. Could happen, so we'll see.
Let's start some good rumors. Rumors are always fun.
It could be.
Let's have fun with it.
One heck of a good group.
I know Mason's planning on sneaking into a suitcase.
Right, I'm just going to slip in the sleds and ship in a container down there.
Well, it's funny because we announced it at Heydays, and I had like 5 or 6 of the climb athletes come and be like, dude, I don't care. I'll pay my way. I'm going. I don't care. I'm going. You know? So, I mean, I know a couple of guys have already told me they're going, and I'm not going to drop their names just yet, but they're big names.
So that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. It's been great talking about Avalanche Alliance and listening to your guys' experiences. I mean, you got some knowledge and some serious experience on the snow with Avalanche stuff. Can't say enough. Take it seriously and go out and get the next level of training that you need. Whether it's level 1, level 2. On snow experience cannot be replaced. Like practice in your garage, practice in your living room, but just assuming that I've got the equipment and I've seen how it's used, that's not going to cut it. Go out there, spend the time, put the money and the investment in, take the classes and take the courses.
Yeah.
And follow Avalanche Alliance on social media. Follow Mason Rutledge. Follow Klim. Follow Fly Racing Snow. Follow Matt Entz. Stay on top of what Avalanche Alliance has going on, and keep tabs on this truck giveaway. You guys are hoping to bring in $300,000 on this truck this year?
Our goal is $500K.
$500,000?
Yeah, that'll give us enough to donate the money to the areas that we've identified. Big time Avi centers, and also some more scholarships for the next 3 years. But we want to get these Avi centers really dialed, and it just takes so much money.
Well,
so that's I'm just going to interrupt you for a second, but that's one thing that's so cool with the Avalanche Alliance and what they're doing. They're using our community, but we're giving back to our community. It's benefiting all of us.
100% of what we raise stays in the snowmobile industry.
Yeah. But it's speeding it up. Like, this process could happen over the next 10 years, but you're making it happen in 2-3 years.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
Yeah.
And I mean, even like the human power industry is benefiting from this. I mean, we want to team up with them too. We want to save lives, all lives. You know, I mean, I could care less how you're getting there or what you're doing to get there. Like, we enjoy the backcountry. Let's make it safer. And so, you know, I hope this message goes out to them as well, and we all, you know, kind of team up and help each other, because I don't want to see anybody die.
Yeah, I think you're building bridges there.
So,
you know, like you said, you've got competing snowmobile companies working together. You've got a Polaris ambassador and a Skidoo factory racer. Like, both of you guys sitting here talking about this stuff, and it wasn't too long ago where we couldn't get 2 of you in the same room to do an interview together, regardless. But this is bridging gaps.
Yeah, this is way bigger than those things.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay.